know about life is that it requires work. I mean, society is set up in such a way that kids are trained, educated, and brought up in a system that says, hey, listen, one day you're going to have to labor and work and contribute to the overall society with a job. And it's funny that how when we work and when we do these things, we commit ourselves to a job, that when it's quitting time, when it's 5 o'clock, there's a relief that comes over us. You know, like, oh man, it's almost time to stop working, right? I mean, you know, when the weekend's approaching or our vacation time's approaching or our off days are in the clear, we're about to be there, there's a relief that comes. Because when you work and when you labor, you expect rest. Rest is something we enjoy because it helps us. And you know, it's really cool because in Matthew 11:28-30, Jesus comes into a religious system. You know, we've been talking about physical things, but He comes into a place where people have been working and laboring in their souls. And in this particular scripture, Jesus says, come to me, you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. No doubt people around Him probably thought He was talking about physical work. But He wasn't talking about something physical. He was talking about something that was going deep down within our hearts. And what kind of work was He talking about? What was Jesus referring to when He was talking about this work that we needed rest from? The work Jesus was talking about was the work we had been doing in our souls to connect with a holy and living God. I mean, He was in a culture that was saturated with what they call the law, the 10 Commandments, all these ordinances and ways that they were supposed to live and do things through everyday life. And in that culture, people were like stressed. They were anxious. They were worried because they were working so hard to please God. They were doing everything they could, but they found themselves failing, found themselves disobeying, found themselves hurting because they couldn't do all the things that this law required. Some of the religious leaders prided themselves on getting it right, making sure that they did everything to the letter, to the T, exactly how God had prescribed. But even those people had failed in some capacity. Jesus went through great lengths to point out that even the person who can meet all these requirements still inherently has a filthy heart and is separated from God. The beautiful thing about this is Jesus doesn't come in and say there's no hope. In fact, He says quite the opposite. He says, you've been trying so hard to labor and work and worry to please God, and there's a better way. There's a better way to work. There's a better way to do this. And He says, it's through me. He says, I'll please God for you, and then you can just trust in me. Come to me and trust me, and I'll make sure that everything works out the way it's supposed to. Jesus goes to the cross. He's obedient even unto death, the scriptures say, and He gives His life to satisfy the wrath of God towards sin. He accomplishes all that the law requires, and in Jesus' work on the cross, He satisfies all the work we've tried to do. I mean, it's awesome, isn't it? Okay, I couldn't do it, but Jesus could, and Jesus did, and now I don't have to sweat anymore. I don't have to think that if I can only do these things, if I can just get this, or if I just... No, it's not about all that. It's about faith and trust in Jesus Christ. I wonder what would happen if we started placing our trust and faith in Jesus Christ instead of ourselves. I mean, that is the call after all. You know, Jesus didn't say, come to me and trust me, but also trust your bank account, also trust your friends and your family for what I need. He's, trust me completely. What happens? I think we find a better way to work. I think we find a better way to live life towards God, knowing that His Son has accomplished everything that needs to be done.